Hey all you cool crooks and killers, welcome back to True Crime Now, your number one place on the internet for daily true crime videos. Did you ever steal a pack of gum from the store when you were a kid and not get caught? As guilty as you might feel to this day about that, it's nothing compared to what these criminals got away with in our video. Today, we are counting down the top 10 people who got away with murder. Number 10. Still innocent even after confessing. This one is a doozy, so hold on tight. A man named Declan Lyons was shot to death in 2004 at a restaurant where he worked in Vermont. Initially, police had no leads and no arrests were made until a man named Isaac Turnbaugh confessed to a friend at a party that he had committed the murder. Since there was no evidence of this confession, when the case went to trial, Isaac was acquitted. In a bizarre turn of events, 7 years after the shooting, Isaac called the police and confessed to murdering Declan. Unfortunately, the double jeopardy law kicked in, which is intended to protect citizens from being tried for the same crime twice. This essentially means that even though Isaac admitted to the murder, since he was already found innocent of the crime all those years earlier, he cannot be retried now. To this day, Isaac remains a free man. If you think that's crazy, hang on tight because we've got some terrifying cases where people were never found guilty, some of whom are still free to this day. Number 9. The Waco Lynch Mob. Waco, Texas has earned quite a name for itself on our channel so far. In this next brutal murder on our countdown, as many as 15,000 people could have been held responsible in some way, but not a single person was charged in the vicious murder of Jesse Washington. Washington was on trial in 1916 for murdering his employer's wife. A then 17-year-old Jesse was not convicted of the crime because the town had other plans. A fake trial took place so that Jesse could be released to a waiting angry mob outside of the courthouse. Over the course of 2 hours, Jesse was tortured mercilessly with over half of the town of 30,000 in attendance. Even the mayor and the sheriff were there. According to reports, he was repeatedly set on fire and several townspeople cut off his fingers and toes. Police were ordered not to arrest anyone. Even though many people can be easily identified from pictures that were taken, not a single person was ever charged in the public murder of the 17-year-old boy. Number 8. The photographer turned murderer. Edward Muybridge has been noted by many to be one of the greatest photographers of all time. Some even refer to him as the father of film. In 1874, after finding out his wife was having an affair, he took it upon himself to end the affair by shooting his wife's lover in cold blood. The case didn't even go to trial as the court somehow found the killing to be justified. Funny he didn't earn any prestigious nicknames for being a murderer. Weirder yet, it rarely seems to get as much attention as his photography career, even though the murder is not really a secret in any way. As in, everyone knows he did it, and he doesn't even deny it. The things you can get away with if you're a celebrity. Number 7. The racist who beat a man to death. In 1982, a man named Vincent Chin was beaten to death with a baseball bat. His killers were 2 of his co-workers and also happened to be father and son. The 3 men worked together at a Chrysler plant in Michigan that had recently started laying off some of its employees due to the increase in the market shares of Japanese automakers. This crime, specifically committed against an Asian American, was determined to be a hate crime and was tried as such in court. The 2 men were initially convicted of violating Chin's civil rights and were given 25 years in prison. but the conviction was not upheld and was later overturned in an appeal. After all was said and done, these two hateful men were only charged with manslaughter for their terrible crime. Number 6. Nazi convicted of manslaughter? Klaus Faber is well documented in history as a murderous member of the Nazi Party. At one point after the war, he was actually on the most wanted list for Nazi war criminals. He contributed to the assassinations of over 50 Dutch activists and ended countless other unnamed lives. When he was finally captured in 1947, he was sentenced to death by firing squad at the unbelievably young age of just 25. Even at this young age, Faber was considered to be one of the worst criminals and murderers to come out of the war. As he waited on death row, his conviction and sentence were reevaluated, and his charges were reduced to manslaughter. He was released from prison and he lived until the age of 90, never truly paying for his crimes. We're halfway through our countdown, and I'm equal parts scared and annoyed that these criminals are free to do whatever they want. Let us know in the comments which one of these criminals you think got off the easiest. Number 5. Justice is a dish that was never served. Number 5 is quite infuriating, so be warned now. In 1993, a black teenager named Stephen Lawrence was stabbed to death by 5 white men. The 5 men were originally arrested but were never charged and quickly released, even though there was an eyewitness to the murder who was able to identify the men. The police actively worked against those trying to convict the man involved and even went out of their way to discredit Lawrence's family members who were working towards finding justice. A full 19 years later, 2 of the men were tried and convicted of the murder, but the other 3 remain at large to this day, even though everyone knows who they are and knows they were involved. These men have not been charged almost 3 decades after this horrific crime took place. Number 4. That's Hollywood, baby. Many of you have probably heard of the case of actor Robert Blake, who stood trial for the murder of his new wife, Bonnie. Bonnie was shot to death in a parking lot outside of a restaurant where the two had just eaten dinner. Blake's alibi? He claimed he went back into the restaurant and his wife was gunned down while she waited at the car. Why did he go into the restaurant? To get a gun, of course. Wait, what? That's what he said. There was apparently not much logic to the story, but the gun found at the scene did not have any fingerprints on it, so it couldn't be directly traced to Blake. So even though the actor was the only one who could 100% be placed at the scene, there was no hard evidence to prove his involvement. Blake got away without any charges or convictions, although many are convinced that he is the one responsible. So, you're saying all I have to do to get away with a crime is be rich and famous? Makes sense, I guess. Number 3. The Angel of Death. We have another crime that takes place during the Holocaust, but a totally different type of criminal than you're thinking in relation to this time in history. A man named Joseph Mengele would actually rescue children from gas chambers, which sounds heroic until you hear what he did next. Joseph would perform horrifying experiments on the children he reportedly saved from death, a fate that may have been preferred by many in this instance. He would remove limbs and organs without anesthetic, inject ink into their eyes, and even sewed 2 children together. When the war ended, this horrifying butcher fled to Argentina before he could be captured and remained on the run for the rest of his life. However, the term on the run may be a bit of a reach. Many reports state that he wasn't trying very hard to hide and that he lived rather openly, never really hiding his identity. He was never charged for his crimes and lived out the rest of his life as a free man. Number 2. David Stith. This next one is a little tricky and we'll let you decide for yourself what you think. In 2015, an officer named David Stith was responding to a burglary call from a concerned homeowner. When he arrived at the home, the officer came across a man named Jeremy Led, standing on the homeowner's porch, matching the description of the person reported. The official narrative is that Officer Stith attempted to tase the man on the porch. But since it was raining, the taser malfunctioned and the officer ended up receiving the shock himself. Fearing he was under attack, the officer then took out his gun and fatally shot Led 5 times. Officer Stith remained on paid leave for the trial, where he was found not guilty and that he was justified in his use of deadly force. We've made it to our number 1 pick, and we know a lot of you may have an idea as to who it might be. Quick, leave a guess in the comments for who you think our number 1 person who got away with murder might be. Number 1. Who else? O.J. Simpson. Can you believe it's been over 25 years since we all watched that slow white Ford Bronco car chase on our screens? In 1995, O.J. Simpson was charged with, then acquitted for 2 counts of murder in the deaths of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. With a lot of compelling evidence against him, many were convinced Simpson would be found guilty of the crimes. With a good lawyer on his side, Simpson walked away from the trial with no formal record, but plenty of public opinion convictions. As many of you may recall or may even have read, Simpson had the nerve to release a book titled If I Did It. What many may not know is that O.J. was found to be responsible for both deaths in later civil trials brought against him by both Nicole and Ron's families. Collectively, the families were awarded almost $50 million, but they both claim they have received less than 1% of this amount from Simpson. However, this is not quite the end of O.J.'s criminal run. In more recent years, 2007 to be exact, Simpson attempted to steal memorabilia which he claimed to be his personal property. On top of a felony burglary, Simpson was also charged with the use of a deadly weapon to commit these crimes. He was sentenced to a prison term of 9 to 33 years, of which he served 6 before being released on parole. So, all in all, I guess he at least served some jail time, but for a totally different crime. Please refer back to my earlier comments regarding being rich and famous when committing a crime if you have any questions. Well, folks, there you have it. The 10 people who got away with murder. Did we miss anybody? Let us know in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell for new true crime videos every day. Until next time, don't be embarrassed to sleep with the lights on.